Well, hello everybody. It's Danny back from Deepsouth Homestead with Porch Time. And yes, I'm in my sitting room today, enjoying the view outside. I see the cabin, the barn, the pond, the piers, the greenhouses. It's all right here. This room was designed with that in purpose, with all the big windows in front of me. And it's a little bit warmer in here. It's 19 degrees outside this morning. So that's pretty chilly in the deep south. And we get so many comments. People say, well, you need to come up north here if you think that's cold. I've been up north. I lived in Connecticut for a while. And I can tell you, I've hunted up north in different states. The cold up there is nothing compared to the cold down here. I've been up there in snow on the ground everywhere, outside in a t-shirt, playing in the snow, and not be cold. You come down south and there's snow on the ground, and you put a t-shirt on, you're going to freeze to death. It's totally different. It's a drier climate up there. When I was working in New York, in downtown New York, I will remember one of the guys one day on the job looked at me and says, it was like up in the middle of the day, and I had a long sleeve flannel shirt on in July. And one of them hollered out there and said, dude, you better come in out of that heat. Said, you're going to have a heat stroke. And I was like, what? They said, yeah, the humidity. Man, it's like 35% and the temperature is 80 degrees. I'm like, I just busted out laughing. I said, dude, you don't even have a clue. I said, we wake up in the morning in the south and our humidity is like 98% and it's 85 degrees. That's when we wake up in the morning and we wear long sleeve shirts. I'm like, you don't have a clue. I said, this ain't even hot. And he just like, well, I don't know about that. He said, I just know we can't take that kind of heat. And I'm like, dude, it's not hot. I promise you. And the same thing with the cold. I mean, I've been all up in the mountains, waterfalls frozen solid, run around in t-shirts up there in those mountains in the snow, and not be hurting at all because it's so dry and the humidity is so low. Down here, if there's ice spewing up out of the ground, you better not be outside with nothing other than a big old heavy bundled up parka on because the humidity will cut right through you. And that's one reason I'm in here today is because the wind is actually blowing again and at 19 degrees, and I don't, it would probably mess with the camera like it did on last Porch Time, and I don't want that again. Several people commented on it, and the motors in the camera just got so cold with the humidity and all, they didn't work, the lens didn't work like it was supposed to. So I decided to come in my sitting room in here and just sit down. Now, it's about 65 degrees in here, which that's fairly comfortable, me with a long sleeve shirt on. It's not too bad. I can enjoy that. But, there's so much going on in the world today, guys, that it's almost scary at the rapid speed that how things are beginning to happen. And my channel is no different than anybody else's. I got all the trolls that come in here. I mean, guys, you see the comments I have to take away and stuff like this because they're just ludicrous. I mean, they're stupid. I'm totally amazed at how many stupid people they are. And people believing that everything's going to go back to normal just like it is, or was. Not is, but was. And there is no way possible. All throughout history, once something happens, nothing ever goes back to what it was. It always moves to a new normal. And that's exactly what's going to happen this time. As a matter of fact, we're so deep in debt as a nation right now that the only way out of this, technically speaking, is the Great Reset. That financially looking at it, that's the only way out of it. And I don't agree with that. Let me say that. I didn't agree with how we got here, and I don't agree with that theory of getting us out of here. I would encourage as many people as possible to try to come out of the system that we're under. And I know it's difficult. Look, it's difficult on Wanda and me. We try our best to come up with things on our channel, not just necessarily gardening, but products that will help everybody. You know, I mean, I'm working with one right now, a company that has to do with EMPs. And because, you know, let's face it, China and North Korea, they don't like us. Soviet Union don't like us. Nobody likes us. And there's nothing in the world to keep them from just smoking us over here. Because we're not prepared. 99% of the people walking around has got a phone in their hand, sitting here doing this all day. They're totally oblivious as to what's going on around them. I'm surprised that people aren't just walking out in the traffic getting ran over because they can't focus because all they got's a phone sitting here doing this all day long. But I'm trying to figure out how I can keep us up and going if something happens. Now, I don't have enough fuel to run indefinitely. But the bottom line is this. The powers to be, through the company that I'm working with, has told me that the military is frantically trying to get everything hardwired right now. And if the military is frantically doing this, then they are expecting something to happen. And they're also trying to devise a plan to get the country back up and running should something happen. And my thought in this whole process, and I think that the guys who I was working with, if they're watching this video, they would agree with me. My thought behind this whole process while I was in this meeting was, what greater bunch of people should we be EMP'd to get the country back up and running than people that are real homesteaders that understand how to survive, and they have small mini farms or large farms or whatever, and they're raising their own food, they're raising their own animals, they're doing all these kind of things. What better people to get a nation back up and on its feet again, should the Lord permit that, than that group of people, the homesteaders? I mean, stop and think about it. Do you want technocrats out there? Do you want the people that's walking around doing this all day? Do you want that mentality of people getting the country back up and running? Or do you want hard-working people that's tilling the land, growing their own food, got a mentality of survival, not a mentality of whining and complaining of what the government hadn't done for them? I mean, stop and think about it. As I had meetings with this company, that's what I portrayed to them. I told them, I said, I would rather see the homesteaders of the country be the ones who are EMP protected than I had these bunch of wimpy little snowflake, unicorn, rainbow type people around, that think everything's just going to go back to normal. It's going to all be okay. And if the internet says it, it must be true. I would just rather have hardworking people. And that's why I'm working with this EMP company to provide a product to homesteaders that will protect our places and our equipment should something happen. Because most homesteaders that I'm saying now, homesteaders that are real homesteaders, now there's a bunch of them out there that's just lollipops, but real homesteaders are prepared. They're prepared with food, and don't think just because you have a solar system that you're going to be okay if an EMP happens. No, your solar system will get fried just like anything else will. And that's a great thing about the company I'm working with. We're working on, I'm going to be working with putting EMP protection on solars, automobiles, tractors, homes, all this kind of stuff. Because I think, personally, should it happen, which I believe it, at some point it's probably going to happen, in order to control the people, if they can't take your firearms, and they can't take you over any other way, the best way to do it is just EMP. It's called a bloodless bomb. They just come in, they just EMP us, and within the first 90 days, over half the population is going to be dead anyway, and then the rest will die from waterborne illnesses and all because they didn't prepare. And the population will be thinned down real thin at that point. I mean, so I want my homestead and my family to be protected. I want them to have every opportunity that there is out there. That's why we're looking into this particular product. Now, this is not a product review on Porch Time. I'm just telling you the direction that I'm going in. And I'm also headed into another direction here. I want to talk today a little bit about, with that being said, I want to talk about don't fight your land. You know, that's one of the biggest issues as homesteaders that we have, I think, in this country today, is we're constantly fighting our land. What I'm going to say is, on your homestead, grow what grows naturally. Now, that's going to be different for everybody depending on where you live in the country. Depends on your grow zones. You know, whether what zone you're in. Now, I'm in zone 8, for those of you who don't know. I technically can grow food here 365 days out of the year. It doesn't matter even if it's 19 degrees outside. I've got kale sitting on a whole field full of kale sitting over yonder that was froze down laying on the ground a while ago when I was out feeding the cows, and the sun's come up now and it's done standing back up. It's still edible. I mean, so there's ice in the edges of the pond down here, I see, but I've got fish in the pond. Got kale on the hillside. I mean, we have, the high tunnels have food in them. Grow what grows naturally in your area. Because if you do that, or let me say this, choose a product that grows one zone colder than yours. Because I will tell you this, as time goes on into the near future, I do believe we're going to get colder at some points, and at some points we're going to be hotter. So when you choose things to plant, choose things one zone colder and some things one zone hotter and your own zone. Have seeds for all of those, because we don't know. The weather is going into what's called weather extremes now. That's part of the grand solar minimum, and I'm probably going to get tons of you going to say, well, I don't believe in that. I don't care if you believe in it or not. History don't lie. We got to look at it and say, hey, there's too many records been kept by too many countries of the past, and you look at what the solar system was doing during those times, and you'll see that there was a solar minimum taking place during those times, and there was famines, empires fell, kingdoms fell, all kinds of things happened during those solar minimums. And it got colder, and it got hotter during those same minimums. Just because there's a grand solar minimum, they call it the mini ice age. And I think that's probably a wrong way to look at it. Because during solar minimums, what happens mostly is you have weather extremes. Yes, when it's cold, it gets colder. Yes, when it's hot, it gets hotter. Yes, when the weather is bad, it gets really bad. So it's all about extremes. And that's something that we have to understand with these climate changes that we're going through. Now man does play a part in it. Don't get me wrong. I understand man does play a part in it. but he's not totally to blame. Now, man wants to take responsibility for it, but he's not totally to blame because some of it is brought on just because our celestial system does what it's doing. And we also have a binary planet system that's coming into our galaxy right now that's causing huge gravitational pulls upon our planet, which is causing things to begin to happen, like Tonga going off. If you go back and look during the solar minimums, you'll find that there were lots of volcanic eruptions during those times. And it's just because of the pull of the Earth. It's like the Earth the other day. You're not hearing anybody talk about this, but the Earth the other day moved off of its axis a little bit further to more toward the north. It tilted after this volcano went off. Y'all have to excuse me, my leg. I have to keep moving it, getting it in a different position. But the Earth actually moved off of its axis and tilted just a little bit more toward the north. And, you know, is that going to affect our weather? Long term, yes. Now, is it drastic right off the bat? No, it's not drastic right off the bat, but it will affect it long term. So, with that being said, look for what grows naturally in your area. Now, some people, I was talking to a young lady the other day. She was all excited because an individual she was up in Arkansas, at her camp up in Arkansas, and an individual took her around through the mountains hunting ginseng. And that grows naturally up there. It does not grow naturally down here where we live at. Now could we grow it here? I'm pretty sure we probably could, but it doesn't grow naturally. There are things that grow naturally here that don't grow naturally in other places. I mean, we have wild blueberries grow here. Wild huckleberries grow here. Wild huckleberries and wild blueberries grow all up in the mountains way up north because I've seen them up there. But they're totally two different kinds of plants. Way up north, the ones I looked at up there are very low growing to the ground. They grow real low to the ground. Down here, they grow up to be huge, big old 10, 15 foot tall bushes, you know. But they're still edible plants. They grow naturally. It would be foolish for you to try to bring a blueberry or a huckleberry from the south and take it up into a northern zone and try to plant it and expect it to grow. It just doesn't happen. Like cranberries, for instance. Cranberries grow, you know, up in Maine and where the peat bogs and all the different places are up there where they can flood them and harvest them and stuff. But down here, cranberries don't grow. Now, you could probably grow them down here, but they don't grow naturally down here. And it's all about, I mean, even, that's the reason, let me say this, that's the reason for so many varieties, specifically fruit trees, being grafted and becoming hybrids, is because people down south want to be able to grow apples just like people up north do. So they keep grafting up varieties until they find a variety that has a very low chill hour to make it grow down south here so we can grow our own apples. And is there anything wrong with that? No, there's nothing wrong with that. But you have to work at it to make it happen. I mean, the prime example is I got a peach one time. I bought a box of peaches from up north. I brought them home, and whenever I got through cleaning them, they were cling free. When I got through cleaning them and putting them in the freezer, I took the seeds out and I planted them in a particular place. I said, we'll just see if they come up. You know, I didn't know if they would or not. And lo and behold, a bunch of them came up. So I set them out around on the place here in different locations. Well, some came up and soon withered away. Some came up and made pretty trees, but they never bore anything. A couple of them came up, and I mean, they were loaded with big, pretty peaches. And I kept that tree, one particular tree, I kept that tree for, Lord have mercy, I don't know, 10 to 15 years. Took care of it. And I mean, it had bushels of peaches on that tree every year. And then I got the bright idea that I was going to put some of my cow manure around it. And I did, and the tree died. Well, I found out later that my cow manure was tainted with Grazon. and I killed my tree, and it made me so sad. But it also angered me that chemicals were being used in our hay, and that's a whole nother story. But you have to look for what grows in your area and does well. Now, not every seed I planted did good. And in the Bible, if you look at the Bible has more to say about agriculture than it does really about anything else. And that's predominantly because agriculture was just the way of life back in biblical times. I mean, that's the way they survived. And the Lord used many instances about animals and agriculture and all this kind of stuff to bring about his message to people. I mean, one of them being the parable of the sower. Some seed fell on good ground, some seed fell on rocky ground, some seed fell on thorns, and he said some sprang up quickly, but then they withered away because they didn't have any substance to them, no root system to them at all. Some came up and they did pretty good, but then they finally withered out. But those that fell on the good soil came up and they had a good, strong root system, and they did well. Now, we know that there's a spiritual meaning behind that, but I'm making application to it in the way of being able to produce food. The way I look at that is, there are some things that are going to grow on your land that will just flourish. And there's some things you're going to bring into your land and try to plant, and they're not going to do anything at all. I mean, it's like us, for instance, here at Deepsouth Homestead. We grow pineapples here. Now, in order for me to grow a pineapple here, I've got to have them in containers, and they've got to be in the greenhouse that's behind my shop that stays hot all the time. It's not feasible to plant anything else in there, but those pineapples literally adore that greenhouse. So that's their niche here. I put them in that greenhouse because that's the climate that they love. If I put them outside, will they grow? Yes, they'll grow. Will they make a pineapple? Yes, they'll make a pineapple. But I have to be constantly on them and protect them from freezing and all this kinds of stuff, because they will freeze outside. And they don't do as good outside. Usually outside in the Deep South, it takes about 4 years for one to make a pineapple. But if I put them in the greenhouse, I've learned I can get a pineapple in 2 years. So we let them grow in the greenhouse. And a home-raised pineapple is 100% better than anything you'll ever get out of the store. So, grow what grows naturally in your area. Don't fight your land. That is one of the biggest issues, guys, that I guess, one of the biggest hurdles. It's not an issue, it's a hurdle. One of the biggest hurdles I think that we have to get over as homesteaders is trying to not fight with our land. We are of the mentality as Americans, I want what I want. I'm used to eating this, and this year-round because the stores have always carried it. When, if we grow where we're planted, then, and we look at the foods that grow naturally in the areas in which we're planted in, then that's the foods for that environment that makes it healthy to live in that environment. If that makes sense. Now, I'm amazed at how many people out there try to, and I'm guilty. I will hold my hand up and say I'm just as guilty as anybody else as to trying to grow things in my climate that are really not intended to be grown here. I mean, like in my high tunnel right now, I have bananas in my high tunnel. If the freeze did not kill them. I had a heat light on them, but I'm hoping the freeze didn't kill them. But there again, they don't grow naturally here because it takes too long for them to make a banana. But by putting them in a high tunnel and getting a dwarf variety, I can push them and I can get bananas. But naturally, what grows outside, it would be a waste of time. Now, the trees will grow. Don't get me wrong, the trees will grow, but they won't grow long enough to make a banana. So, as people that are set up to survive, the only way, guys, we're going to be able to survive the things that this country's throwing out at us and what we may face in the very near future is simply we're going to have to not fight with our land and grow what grows naturally on our property. And this is the whole theory behind permaculture. Is growing what grows naturally. Go out into the woods and look. Nobody tills that land. Well, I say nobody tills that land. Yes, people do till the land is tilled. I have to disagree with that when I hear people say that, because if you go out in the woods around where I live at, you'll find where creatures have dug into the soil everywhere. If it's not an armadillo, it's not. I mean, I've about killed out all the armadillos here. I got one left, I think. And some places it's wild hogs that till up the woods. It's just, there's animals, squirrels digging holes in the ground. I mean, there's constantly creatures digging and tilling the ground all in the woods. And these creatures are helping to plant seeds. And I can attest to that, because I sit here and watch the squirrels up and down these trees all the time. They're taking acorns out of the trees, go off each other, and they dig a hole, put that acorn in it, and there's no way they'll find all those acorns, because I'm constantly pulling up oak trees around this place all the time. And it's from them squirrels planting them. But guys, my point today on Porch Time is grow what grows naturally where you live at, and do not fight with your land. Let it do what it does naturally where you're at, so that you will survive if something happens in this country. Thank you, guys, from Deep South Homestead.